Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. First of all, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar, Integrated Finance and Sales Planning at ForeScout. So my name is Jada Gomez, and I'm with Customer Success here at OneCloud, and I'm very excited to be joined here today by Will Lederer, who is the Senior Finance Manager at ForeScout. So today's webinar is going to cover ForeScout's connected planning journey and how they reduce time and resources by an estimated 30% using OneCloud. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Will.
Thank you, Jada. Hello to everybody out there. Again, as Jada said, we at ForeScout use connected planning primarily around the Anaplan product, but you can use other products. Here's a picture of us. Just a little about ForeScout. We're in the cybersecurity space. We have a product that, cutting to the chase, simply detects all the IoT devices that might connect to your network. And just a little commercial for us. Every thermostat, camera, phone, laptop, computer, whatever on your network, our software or counteract product will find it and determine if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and then protect you if it's an intrusion by somebody that's not supposed to be there. As you can see on the right side of the screen, we have just a little information about our company. We went public last year. We've got over 900 employees. We've got 3,100 happy customers, and Deloitte thinks we're pretty good and pretty fast growing. So again, our Anaplan is the centerpiece of our connected planning environment, and our use cases have two workspaces, our finance side and our sales side. We have them in two workspaces because we wanted to separate the administration of each of these workspaces among our various Anaplan developers. Until recently, I was all things Anaplan, but now I actually have staff. On the finance side, we do our budgeting, expenses, and revenue. We have a COGS and gross margin model. We have quarterly revenue forecast, and there's other models that I'm not showing here, but those are our main use cases there. And then on the sales side, we use ICM for compensation management, and performance and capacity we have a model for, and territory and quota management. Our data sources for external data is our ERP is NetSuite. The CRM, we use Salesforce, and for human resources, we use Namely. So the data flows, which is why we need integration tools, is Anaplan gets data from Salesforce, from Namely, from NetSuite, and in the future state, we also want to push data back to those source systems. And then we do a lot of reporting. We use Anaplan for some reporting, and we use Tableau as a visualization tool for a lot of reporting to prepare monthly reports and to prepare even weekly reports and tracking and analysis. The one thing that we really liked about using the OneCloud tool is in the source systems, we can create custom reports, particularly in Salesforce, and we will be doing it in NetSuite, where our users can go in and create a report that they want of data they want to pull into Anaplan, or our Salesforce administrators create a report with, say, more advanced querying and joining of data that we also want to pull into Anaplan. So once we've created Salesforce, or if it's an existing report we already have there, we can use OneCloud to just pull that report. What we didn't like before we used the integration tool is that we had to go into these tools, export the data, go into Anaplan, import the data, and do the validation and so forth on that. A person would have to do that, kick it off, do it on some kind of regular basis, and always subject to human error in that process. And we looked at other integration tools, and the things that we thought were challenging there was in building them, having to write code, write SQL or SOQL, and do all the scripting that, frankly, finance people don't like to do. And we lacked any ability to schedule these tasks. So connecting planning for us, and anybody that's familiar with Anaplan or planning in general, is you've got a lot of information flowing from one model to another model, one system to another system, and we wanted the tool that would help us connect all of our models, as well as all the information from our systems, that we could, as it says there, exchange the data seamlessly amongst all these things. So our first benefit in using OneCloud is when we split our hubs, our finance hub and our sales hub, which are the centers of data that feed all the models, we wanted those to stay in sync. And before we had OneCloud, we didn't even consider doing this because we didn't have a person that could sit and every day figure out how to get the data from one to the other and run all the imports and check them. Using OneCloud actually let us we succeeded in doing this because every night it runs and it pulls the data from our finance hub to our sales hub, keeping them both in sync. We have the same data in both. The finance hub is where we load all the data from its source systems, or we enter data via people who are preparing spreadsheets and so forth. And those, all that data gets loaded there, and then every night we move it over to Sales Hub, or we can change it to any other frequency we want. The second benefit is the reports and things that business users are taking the time to prepare, to push into our models, to bring into Anaplan. ForeScout allows us to automate all the extract of those and take the human part out of there. So also OneCloud allowed us to do this without having to do complicated integration work. And when we get to the demo part, I can show you how easy it is. And we can keep the users engaged on their planning system. They don't have to be requesting the integration. They don't have to go to another tool to run the integration. We can kick it off right from Anaplan. Because it's automated and we validate it to start, it reduces our time to reconcile all this movement of information. And then this geek speak between our IT integration experts and our business users, and having to understand what each side needs or wants. We pretty much eliminated all that with the pretty simple to use and the intuitive nature of OneCloud. And the third benefit, which I just touched on, is that intuitive interface. I just like the way it works, and so do the people on my team. We get an insight into how the Anaplan import is running, so that we can check the any warnings, any errors. We can pause chains if we're setting up a new chain and check them. And there's a notification service that I can dump into my inbox each time an integration process runs, so that I can check it literally from anywhere, or I'll know if something has failed. So looking forward, we're ready very soon actually to expand our systems and bring more things into this integrated connected systems view. We're going to use NetSuite, the same thing as we have a lot of reports that we built there. We can point to them, bring them into Anaplan, and replace the manual export import that we have there. Our human resources reports, we can also attach to Namely, bring in accurate headcount reporting, and do this on a more dynamic basis. Right now in NetSuite, we bring in our bookings data weekly. What we'd like to do is get to a more real-time display of bookings for our sales team by bringing that in, say, daily or maybe even twice a day. To have a person trying to manage that without an integration tool like OneCloud would be very onerous. In Salesforce, we do planning and such as our territory and quota planning that we want to push back into Salesforce. So we want to take opportunity information out of there, customer information out of there, and we want to push back the results of our planning into Salesforce by basically pushing a button. In Tableau, we want all our data to run to Tableau for analysis and for reporting. And farther down the line, we want to create more Anaplan use cases, and having OneCloud allows us to connect any new use cases to the information that's already in our other systems in a very automated and really simple way. So let's get to a demo here, and you can see how the product works for us. So this is Anaplan itself. Let me go to sign on to OneCloud. We use Okta as our single sign-on tool. And Okta can be set up by user within OneCloud or any single sign-on tool just by turning it on for whichever users need to access. So here's OneCloud right here. The first thing that we did, here's the admin part where we would set up the users and so forth. But the first thing we need to do if we're going to build a integration is we need to go to create a connection. So I've created a connection for the purpose of this demo right here. We're using the BizApp, as they call it at OneCloud, called Cloud Runner. And if I want to edit this, I pick the BizApp. In this case, it's the connection to Anaplan. I pick the runner. We have Cloud Runner, and there's also Ground Runner. We can name it. And we have a choice of, this is where we're connecting to, which is Anaplan, which I think gets filled in by the BizApp that you choose. In this case, I've set up for basic authentication with a service account that I can put a password in. My other choice is to, instead of using basic, is I can use Anaplan has a legacy certificate or a new certificate, which has greater security. I can choose the certificate and put the certificate path, put the key store path, password, and so forth into the model or into the setup here. And basically I'm done, and it'll authenticate my connection to Anaplan or whichever system I'm using this setup. Very easy to do, very quick. You just have to go and find the information that you need to do this. So I'm going to go back to home here, and you'll notice that OneCloud supports different workspaces according to how you manage the development of these integrations. We use the dev and prod. I think you can use more if you want. Also, there's we have our FP&A workspace and our sales workspace. So we have those separated out. Can build our chains separately. So if we open a chain in our dev environment, I'm going to open this one called Set Today's Date. This is a utility. This uses a utility. This is a file utility that OneCloud has, and OneCloud has file utilities. It has lightweight ETL that you can use to do whatever needs to be done with the file in order to get it the way you want to be imported. So in building a chain, I would create a file. I'm using this utility that OneCloud has to create a file with today's date in it. Here's it's pulling the system date actually from OneCloud, and that's pretty much it on that. Then I want to upload that file into a file that can then be used to import into Anaplan using the Cloud Runner BizApp. If I look at the file content, it'll create that file, and we'll look at this when I go to execute it, of what actually is in these things. And then the run process is actually calling from Anaplan this process here, which if you, your developers or whichever system you're using, just create an import that OneCloud calls to bring in the data. So there's no coding, there's very little configuration. Mainly the biggest thing I have to know is, what are the names of things? What's my workspace called? What model am I importing into? And what's the import that I want to run? So I'm going to cancel that. And also in here, once I build it in development, if I'm happy with the way my chain runs, I can then take it and promote it to my production environment. which is also very easy to do. So instead of editing now, I'll promote. This is the environment I want to go to. If I had other environments, they would be listed here. This is the connections that I want in my environment. So it'll copy the connections over as well, so I don't have to recreate those. And if all of this is correct, I promote, and then it will appear in my production environment. I'm not going to do that because I already have that there. So let's go back to my production environment. And I have some of the things that we hear. I'm not showing everything that we have, but the today's date is the one we were looking at. If you'll notice, it has a scheduler on here, and I've got it set to run at midnight every night to pull whatever the new date is as the date changes into my model, and I'll show you where in the model that populates. I'm going to edit this chain here just to show you that it's the same one I created in the development environment. So let's now see what happens when we go to run this. So if I go to execute, which is this little icon down here, if I run the chain, it'll run through all those steps that we looked at before, and I'll show you the results of that. Oh, of course, this is a demo, so it didn't work, but let's look at, let's just go back here. So in the run history, it creates the file right here. And it didn't work because I had to change a configuration on a certification, but this I just ran earlier. It creates the file, it uploads the file. In this case, the file has just whatever today's date in it, today. Here's the content. Today's date is 12/12. And here's the process it ran in Anaplan. And if there was any errors, it would print out the errors. Here's the import action. It would print out the errors of that it encountered when it went to Anaplan. If some records didn't load, or if in some cases you don't load every record, you're loading to something in Anaplan. It doesn't. You're not updating everything. You're just updating what you have in your planning product. And you'll see the results of that, how many records loaded, how many failed, and you'll see that all right here. Now that that's, when that is run, I can go to my email. Just a moment. Sorry, I have a screenshot of this. I'm sorry, I can't find it now. You can tell I don't do a lot of these webinars. I'll recover from this. So in my email, I have OneCloud set up to show there's the chain that failed, but here's the chain that's completed. This way you get to see both of them. And this is set today's date. And if I want to go to OneCloud to view the chain, I can click here. It'll take me right back to OneCloud. So in Anaplan, here's a depiction of our two workspaces. This is our finance workspace and our sales workspace. And where OneCloud is helping us is where you see many of these lines here. I'm going from my finance hub to my sales hub, and OneCloud allows us to do that on a scheduled basis pretty seamlessly that we don't have to worry about. And if I go to Anaplan, in this model here, I have a dashboard with this automation link that will refresh today's date whenever I want to refresh it. What's behind is here is, this is the target of the import where it, as you can see, it refreshed with today's date because it's already run successfully here. If I go back to this link, it's going to open up OneCloud, authenticate me, and automatically start running this again. And again, I apologize for this error here, but I'm not going to take the time to debug it. I actually know what it is. So that's the demonstration for OneCloud. And I go back to the presentation here. And why did I choose it? Well, it reduced the time that a whole number of people had to manually run processes, export files, import files, validate the files. And because people had to do it, we kept the frequency of that as low as possible. So we eliminated those manual processes, we increased the accuracy, and we could run it more frequently. OneCloud is multi-purposed. You can see we have a number of different systems that we are using it with and want to use it with. Anaplan to Anaplan, Salesforce to Anaplan. We're using it for a relational database to go to Tableau. Eventually, we plan to go directly to Tableau, going to NetSuite, and we'll go to Namely. OneCloud is developing the biz apps faster than I can keep up with them. So any system that we expect to get, OneCloud team is great on building biz app to support that. Gives us less reliance on IT support to support the finance and FP&A initiatives on reporting of data or any models we want to build. And the versatility of the tool, I find it very easy to use, find it very easy to set up. And the last one here is we really like working with Quinn and Brian and Jada and the rest of the OneCloud team. And ultimately, it saves us time, both on the amount of time to do something and the amount of time to develop one of these integrations and to develop the whole strategy of moving this data. And then here are some links to OneCloud and to ForeScout and some of the various things we mentioned. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jada, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bill. It's really been great being able to see how ForeScout uses OneCloud. So I'm now going to open it up to any questions that you guys might have. I do see we have a number of them that came in already, but if you have any other questions, you can just hit the Q&A button and type them in there and we'll be able to answer those. All right, so the first question is, and Will, this one is for you. What other integration tools did you consider?
We actually used Informatica for some time, which is a fine tool. However, we liked OneCloud better, and we went with that for our business applications. I'm also familiar with and have looked at things like Dell Boomi, Jitterbit. What other ones we like? Our IT department actually looked at several. We were actually using some IBM products, but they really didn't. None of them really lended themselves to our use case of finance being able to control this. And what I mean by that is our IT organization is, I'll say, quote unquote, trim. And our finance and accounting needs are often very urgent. And our IT resources don't want to have to verify and validate financial data and CRM data when they're building these things. But our finance people are, of course, experts at that. And they want to be able to do these things quickly during close and reporting cycles. Sometimes you can't anticipate some of the data movement that you need to build. And finance people, surprise, surprise, don't really like to code and configure integration systems. So OneCloud really answers that call for us in that it's very easy for us to set up and it's easy for us to administrate.
Yeah, great. Okay, and I'll get to the next questions. And I also have Brian Myers here in the room with me, and he is OneCloud CPO. So he's going to be able to answer any of the technical questions that you have about OneCloud. So the next question we have here is, what are the scheduling capabilities of OneCloud?
Yeah, so as far as scheduling in OneCloud, it's pretty broad in terms of how you can schedule these chains and automations, anywhere from down to the minute to weekly, monthly, hourly, daily schedules can all be accomplished based on the needs of your automation.
Awesome. And can OneCloud run on-premise? We have a SQL Server database that we would like to connect with Anaplan.
Yes, absolutely. So in the case of SQL databases or any other on-premise systems, OneCloud has a lightweight agent that we call a ground runner. And by installing that either in your on-premise servers or say your private cloud, you can then have access to those applications right from OneCloud. And any of the data interacted with will actually be done wherever that agent is installed. So it'll stay behind your firewall and secure with no ports open.
Okay, and the next question is, do you offer a trial, or do I have to talk to sales to get access to the platform?
We do offer a trial, and that's easily accessible at our website, onecloud.io. And you'll see buttons and notifications all over the place to sign up and start using OneCloud today. So there's no necessary need to talk to sales. You can get started today.
Awesome. And how does OneCloud handle encrypted data from source systems to Anaplan?
That is a great question. And so basically the way that it works is as data is pulled from systems, we actually encrypt that to a format that is then only decrypted when it's actually going to be pushed to a target system. And any sort of temporary staging where the data is also on encrypted platforms as well.
Okay, great. And can you explain a bit about OneCloud security?
Absolutely. So that question is broad, so I'll touch on a couple points here. So in terms of a compliance perspective, OneCloud is SOC 1 and SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. And as far as security of data, there's really two main aspects to this. One is, of course, with your connections, as Will showed, you need to enter the credentials to these systems that you're interacting with. And we have a proprietary system that uses a system called Vault to actually encrypt these credentials so that the only time that they are ever decrypted and used is right before they're going to connect to the system. And as far as the data, I kind of explained that with how we move data between Anaplan and other source systems. That will keep that encrypted as it's flowing through our system, and it will never land on our platform.
Great. And it looks like we have one last question here. Can you speak to your security certifications?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the compliance that I just discussed, that's really the SOC 1 and SOC 2 Type 2. Those are the certifications that we currently have in place.
Awesome. So I think that wraps up all of the questions that we have. So I'll give you guys back the better half of your hour here. Thank you all so much for joining, and thank you, Will, for coming on and being able to present with us. We'll send out a recording to this webinar, and you can always just access all of our on-demand webinars online on our learning page. So you can go to that if you ever want to see anything else, learn more, or just reach out to us. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Great to talk to you.